Welcome to a special edition of the Final Furlong podcast. We're kind of switched to the jumps in Britain and Ireland, but we've got to look back on the major European success at Breeders' Cup 2023 in the company of our international racing correspondent, Naomi Tukker. Naomi, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Emmet. It's been a while, but Breeders' Cup was a good one. It's funny you mentioned we've switched to the jumps now, and I'm like, we just came off a used flat festival. What are you talking about? But yes, winter is coming, as they like to say in was it Game of Thrones?
Yes.
Yeah, and we've wrapped up. Like, we wrap up the flat season in the US now. This is, of course, the Breeders' Cup World Championship is the big finale. So this is the last one of the big races. Well, you'd have some over Christmas at Santa Anita Park. They got some due, but like the last one, kind of most horses tend to now get a little bit of a break, and then they'll start bringing him back. Either get going with the Kentucky Derby Trail, of course, first Saturday in May, or you see horses, if they say in training for longer, you go Pegasus World Cup, or they start looking at the Dubai World Cup, the dirt horses, to bring them sort of that way. Saudi Cup as well now, of course. So yeah. Oh, I think I got a ghost in my room.
Is there a poltergeist making a cameo appearance on the Final Furlong? If that doesn't get us 10 likes on YouTube, then I should be asking for 100 for that. Then I don't know.
I was like, when you see it in the corner of your eye, you're like, what is?
Yeah, I was thinking it's your husband is coming strolling in, not a poltergeist.
I thought we are doing this. Cat, but then I didn't see any cat, so I was like, wait, what? There's no cat? Like, what's going on?
We are doing this new to YouTube as well. We are very new. The boys at Let's Talk Racing have got like thousands of followers on YouTube. We've got 2. So we're brand new. We're basically starting from scratch here. All the content still stays on Spotify, of course, and Apple Podcasts. But if you would like to join us on YouTube, like, subscribe is much appreciated. You were very busy doing all the broadcast work for the Breeders' Cup, including shooting in Compton. Well, I should rephrase that. You were shooting some scenes in Compton.
I actually, unfortunately, ended up not going because I didn't feel so well. But the team did go to see the Compton Cowboys, so that was very, very exciting.
Were you not feeling well because you are?
Because I've got a little baby on the way.
Heavily pregnant. How far along are you?
Yeah, 32 weeks now. So yeah, what is it? 8 weeks until full term. So getting there. Yeah, so I had to kind of take a step back, and they went there. But of course, the Compton Cowboys, it's a wonderful story because it's basically the usage of horses to teach children how to work with horses, to get them off the streets, to give them a purpose in life, to give them a hobby. Of course, we know how horses can heal, right? And how it gives you a wonderful way to learn new skills, to spend your time. And that's basically what the Compton Cowboys do. And of course, also they just super cool people. Like, go and look them up. They're just the Compton Cowboys. Like the name suggests it. They got swag, right? They are pretty awesome. They are proper American cowboys, and it's just, yeah, it's a wonderful initiative. So we'll be doing some content on that as well. So that was really cool that we were able to do that.
That's what World Horse Racing?
Yeah, that's World Horse Racing.
Nice. All right. Find out more about that at the World Horse Racing YouTube page, social media sites, all that. First time I heard about them was Guinness did a big promo involving the Compton Cowboys. It was so cool. They have ridiculous marketing, and it was a really clever, very intelligent campaign they did. So, yeah, intrigued to see how that works out. Right. We're focused on the Euros. Appleby is synonymous even with Breeders' Cup success. The last time the meeting was in California, we had 3 winners. All of them were Charlie Appleby, but the first European winner is not Charlie, not even related. It's Mick Appleby, and a first win for Tom Marquand as well on Big Evs. The perception would be that the Americans produce this type of horse, a big speedball who can have lots of early pace, and yet this is a Blue Point, purebred British horse who's just, well, Irish horse actually, but trained in the UK, who has now been a Royal Ascot winner and a Grade 1 winner in America. Sensational performance.
It was just incredible. I mean, you mentioned already Mick Appleby. I mean, this was their first Breeders' Cup starter ever, right? First ride at the Breeders' Cup for Tom Marquand ever, and they win. And then for the Appleby stable as well, of course, not Charlie Appleby, but Mick Appleby, long-standing trainer, first ever Grade 1 win, as we would say here in the US. It's just incredible. Like this, it's like a fairy tale story, right? And you're right. When you look at in terms of the speed and precocity, we tend to see, well, the Wesley Ward type horses, or George Weaver, right? We got Crimson Africa who came over and won the Queen Mary. So we do see a lot of that juvenile speed, especially gate speed in the US. So you think Big Evs would have had an issue with that? No, not at all. Like if you look back at that race, he shot from the gate like a rocket. Like he had Crimson Advocate on the lead on his inside. I was listening to Tom Marquand in the press conference afterwards, and he was like, "Oh, she broke my heart once at Royal Ascot. I was hoping she wasn't going to do it again." But I think Big Evs' effort was highlighted by the fact that Crimson Advocate ended up backing up. It was too much for her, that pace, to keep that up on the lead for the full 5 furlongs. Had a bit, had a few other Euros that tried to come at him. You had Starless, I think, back in third for Rafe Beckett, Valiant Force, of course, for Adrian Murray as well. So there was plenty of European sort of that closing kick that we tend to see. But Big Evs just kept on going. I mean, that was not a fluke of a performance whatsoever. That was very, very strong. So I was really impressed, and also just really happy for the connections for the stable, because it's such a wonderful story that they bring their first runner over here, flying their flag, right? And there you go, British Cup winner.
Yeah, the more I looked at it, the more keen I was to take him on. And I got this spectacularly wrong. But part of the reason was, you're shipping all the way over to California. You're racing on the West Coast. We didn't do well. Europeans did not do well in Del Mar, except for Charlie Appleby. And it was only Joseph O'Brien had a winner at the last Santa Anita Breeders' Cup. And yet, we've gone over and absolutely crushed. We have crushed everything. But this in particular,
have done well.
We have crushed, Naomi. We've conquered America, and we're coming back to do it again next year. But the performance of Big Evs was spectacular. And to be fair, Valiant Force, like that Royal Ascot win, I mean, it was sensational. The Aidan O'Hara tipped that horse at long shot value on the Tweak machine. We've had Aidan on the show several times since. How did he do it at 150 to 1? It didn't seem like a strong race. It wasn't holding up. And yet, his only other start, he was 9 3/4 lengths beaten by Van Dijk. That was in Group 1 company. Hadn't run since, including missing out in a listed race at Dundalk. But he's now won at Royal Ascot and placed at the Breeders' Cup for Adrian Murray. It's fantastic training.
Absolutely. I mean, in general, what the Euros have shown here with that 1, 2, 3 finish is that actually we can produce juvenile speedsters that go over and do well. And I do think when you look at, in general, Royal Ascot, we do tend to give the internationals that come over a good run for their money. And of course, Wesley Ward's been super successful, but in general, I do think that the home front holds themselves up quite decently. And I think this has proved it. But it's definitely not a result that we would quintessentially have predicted or expected based on the preconceptions, historically speaking, that we have of the way that the Americans train versus the Europeans, the way they race versus the Europeans. But look, it's good to see. And of course, Big Evs, you were saying European speed. Blue Point, he's by Blue Point. He's a top-notch sprinter. Would you have expected him to be slow? No, right? You hoped he would be what he showed us to be. So no, I just think it's a wonderful result, and let's keep on building on this.
And he's had a spectacular first season at stud. Rosalind, a Group 1 winner for him now. Big Evs, a Grade 1 winner. I genuinely don't understand how Godolphin didn't get at least one fast, precocious, graded class Blue Point, but they didn't somehow. But hey, as a stallion, he is flying the flag for them, and a sensational first season and a sensational win. I do wonder, just before we move on, that Wesley Ward dominance at Royal Ascot, we were putting a lot of that down to how he would condition his horses and the type of horses he was buying at the sales. And I had the pleasure of interviewing him for TalkSport and for the Final Furlong podcast before Royal Ascot. It obviously didn't happen for him there, and I have no doubt that Wesley Ward will once again be crushing at Royal Ascot in years to come. But that type of horse that he was buying and then having an advantage over everything, I wonder, has that just changed? Has everybody else copped on? And do they now have that kind of horse going forward as well?
I'd say a little bit, yeah, because when you look at, in general, turf racing as well in the US, you do see a lot of more American trainers go over to Europe to go and purchase certain type of horses, the longer distance runners, the proper turf breds. I do think people are kind of like, okay, if I'm looking for a certain mold of horse, a certain breeding line, a certain physique, where can I best find them? of course, if you know what you're looking for, you're really looking for a precocious type in Europe, and people see that Wesley Ward went and did that and went and then brought them over, or basically the way he selects horses, why wouldn't you start trying the same, right? If it's working, why not? I mean, I think trainers and owners, we all learn from each other, right? When it comes to some horses do really well, some horses perhaps not, or what works for us, what works with our program. Why wouldn't you start trying when you see someone else does it very well? Why can't it suit your program or your way of breeding or training? So I think that's a positive. I think there's nothing wrong with people kind of copping on to certain things and go, let's try this as well. I think that's good. It creates more competition.
Yeah, very much so. And for all that most people who buy racehorses are probably very successful in life because they've got lots of money, and you have to have patience in order to get that money.
Well, you're talking about the owners or the people that select the horses, because it's not always the same thing, right?
Now, no. Hold on a second. Very different. The people who are selecting horses, they don't care. They don't care at all. I did an interview with Daniel and Claire Kubler, who are two very, very engaging, interesting, highly intelligent people. And they're mixing a blend of science with horsemanship and teamwork in order to achieve fantastic success. I don't know how many bloodstock agents they're working with. That's a different kettle of fish, those people. But it is just engaging. It's interesting to see how this is going to work going forward. Are we going to be producing more of these speedy types and these fast, precocious horses?
Well,
how are these horses going to... Yeah, and how are these horses going to fare going forward then?
I do think if you look at the breeding lines back in Europe now, that people are moving away from your Derby winners, right? Ugh. Your longer distance horses. I mean, are your Gold Cup horses going to be used to produce milers? Not really anymore, right? I mean,
no, straight to the jumps. I mean, that's what, like, Hurricane Lane was a very, very talented racehorse, Irish Derby winner, Grand Prix de Paris winner. Coolmore buy him from Godolphin for what role? National Hunt Stallion.
Yeah. But that's what we've seen in the last decade anyway. This is not a new trend. This is something that we've seen more and more of, that there is more of a focus on speed, as was already the case in Australia, by the way. When you look at their breeding lines, they were already kind of doing that. Is that detrimental to looking for those, Derby?
Well, there's a very good point to make, because that should be a warning to everybody. Oh, look at what Australia do. Yeah, what do Australia do? They have to come up to the Northern Hemisphere to buy our cast-offs or our decent handicappers to be able to go and win the Melbourne Cup. They can't produce middle-distance horses. And yet...
That's why they also don't like it when the Europeans come over and win the Melbourne Cup, because
it didn't...
staying horses.
They're more than happy to celebrate their win this year with a cast-off from the UK, but still...
Without a fight,
yeah. Although, to be fair, he wasn't a cast-off. He retained the ownership. They just cleverly moved him down there. But now that he's Australian trained, it's a little bit like when Merchant Navy and Star Spangled Banner both won at Royal Ascot for Aidan O'Brien. They weren't Australian horses. The Aussies claimed them, but they were not Australian horses. They were very much Aidan O'Brien horses and Irish wins. And we'll take those wins all day long. But I do think that's a very good point to make about the breeding industry, that the Australians are all about speed. That is clearly what's in vogue in Europe. It's clearly what's in vogue in Britain and Ireland. I don't know about this going forward. Smarter people than me make decisions about breeding horses and who to buy, but I'd be very worried about our middle distance progeny going forward and what kind of horses we're producing. Right, 1, 2, 3 for Europe in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. A 1-2 for Ireland and Aidan O'Brien in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. This is a race that he has dominated over the years. Last year, it was himself and Charlie Appleby fought out the finish. This year, the biggest rival came from his own yard, and also from the veterinary team, because he probably would have had the 1, 2, 3 had River Tiber been allowed to run. Who knows what the run from Gimme the Beat Boys would have been, but just briefly on that, really controversial. Jessica Harrington was not happy about the fact that her only runner was withdrawn. Aidan O'Brien, I think they both handled it with class and dignity, but what was your take on it?
I mean, it's kind of a two-edged sword, right? You're kind of doomed if you do and doomed if you don't. I can see both point of views. You look at, someone like Jessica Harrington bringing over one runner. A lot of time has gone into it. They know the horse, right? They thought the horse was fine and good to run. They judged the horse to be fine. They thought they should deserve a stall in the gates. Now, the veterinary team disagreed with them. And the issue here is that if they have to go on their own judgment, right? They're looking at hundreds of horses a day, because we have had situations in the US that on these big occasions, horses break down, and it is far, far worse for the sport in general, for the event in general, than you could even, fathom. Like the repercussions, it just keeps going, and it's horrid. So the vets are careful, and if they don't like something, they will say the horse is not running. And I get where they're coming from, because they're doing their job. They're told to be careful, to be mindful, to make sure these horses are 120%. So even if there is a slightest bit of doubt, which clearly there was with these horses, not enough for the trainer to go like, well, no, we should be running. But for the vets, there was obviously slight bit of doubt. They weren't in, I think, what was it with the Jessica Harrington run? He was slightly off on his near full, they thought. And she disagreed with that, because obviously they see the horse trot up every day themselves. They know the horse. So I get where they're coming from. They're like, I know this horse is fine. I also get where the veterinary team is coming from, in that they have to do a job, and that there is, under no circumstances do you want anything happening with a horse that you had a doubt about and then you let run, right? So I find that it's hard for the connections. It's hard for the trainers. It's hard for everyone having, prepared these horses. This is the one shot you're going to get, to then be there and not compete. That's not what you want to see. So of course that hurts, right? Of course, I think anyone in that position would have probably reacted the same. I think you're right that both trainers took it very, very well. We're very professional about it. I do tend to agree a little bit more with the veterinarians, based on just how I see the situation develop here in the United States, that the continuous publication of breakdowns and of things happening is just absolutely detrimental to the future of this sport. And if that means that you do everything you can to stop this from happening, then I think you should. And that is upsetting for people, and I get where they're coming from, but I still think it's the right thing to do to protect our sport. And the horses. You don't want anything happening, right?
No, equine welfare is paramount.
Equine welfare, yeah. That's even just not mentioning the fact that you want every horse to reach the finish line sound, and to pull up sound, and to be ready to go the next day without anything happening. So if we can protect these horses by these very stringent checks, then I think we should. And that will go at the expense of, you're here, you were looking forward to this. And then you do swallow that pride, and you do go, okay, I understand. And that's what those trainers did. They might not enjoy, of course it's not what you want to hear, but they did. It is a painful situation.
I think the problem with it, though, is
the right thing to do.
For all that, we're all an advocate for equine welfare. And some of the stuff that has happened in American racing this year, even the horse who ends up winning the Breeders' Cup Classic, the former trainer of the current trainer of that man is, Anyway, congratulations to that man after his 10-year ban and his Breeders' Cup Classic success. But the former trainer, obviously major questions to be asked. Major questions about Bob Baffett continue in this sport. And he didn't end up having a winner at the meeting. And probably that's a relief to some people in American racing that he didn't, quite frankly, because I'm not sure how that would have gone down had he had a success there. We will never eliminate risk. There's a huge threat. Vast majority of people watching this, I'm sure, will be and listening are going to be based in the UK and Ireland. But for our American listeners, it's a huge threat to British and Irish racing from the animal rights activists. I think we've combated it very well. There have been people like Kevin Blake and Nevin Truesdale who've spoken about it eloquently and have gone toe-to-toe with them. Nick Luck did so as well on a number of different broadcasts. But that misinformation can be very damaging to our sport overall. And we need to figure out a way to get the message out there that these horses, what those people want, what they have now advocated for, is to stop breeding of racehorses. And one of them literally said to me, Naomi, he literally said to me, and this is an actual spokesperson for Animal Rising. Yeah, if we stop the breeding of racehorses, that means that the equine thoroughbred will die out and they'll no longer exist. But it's not like there'll be no horses in the world. There'll still be wild horses in the fields in the UK. That's the insanity you're dealing with. You are dealing with absolute insanity. These people want these animals gone entirely. They are not out there trying to advocate for their welfare or look out. They're more interested in the equine rights, the animal rights of a horse, than the welfare. And there's a huge difference between the two. On one side, you have a group of people who want to honor the horse, protect the horse, breed it for generations to come, and celebrate the horse. And on the other side, you have a group of people who want to protect the rights of a horse by ending their lives entirely and having none of them exist in the world at all. So which side are you on? Are you on the side of racing, where we want to protect these animals, or are you on the side of the extremists who think that genetic defects like breathing issues and certain physical frailties is enough of a reason to eliminate them from existence? That's fascist-like mentality. And we have to stand up to those people. Now, in terms of the vets, I get it. It's a difficult situation. If you see a horse take a step that you're not happy with, you're obviously going to make a move to try and take that horse out if you think that that's the right thing for the horse on the day. Are you the same vet who was looking at that horse all week? Or is this a different person? Has the trainer explained to you that that horse has a different walk? Is the surface that the horse is being asked to walk on, is it a sound surface?
There was a question about that.
Is it a safe, is it a straight surface for the horse to be able to walk across? And whether you like it or not, the implication of what these people did by withdrawing Gimme the Beat Boys and River Tiber is that Aidan O'Brien and Jessica Harrington were going to run a horse on sound. And by that implication, you are suggesting that not only were Aidan O'Brien and Jessica Harrington going to do that, but so was the traveling head lad, the Coolmore vet, the work rider, the groom, the stable lass, and jockey Ryan Moore. That's madness.
No, I don't agree with your statement there. That's a bit extreme. I think I get where you're coming from with that implication, but I don't think that's correct entirely, because obviously when you're listening to Jessica Harrington, that team knows that horse. So are they running a horse that they deem to be unfit and unsound? No.
No way. Never.
So that's not the same thing as what you're saying. Oh, the implication is they were going to run an unsound horse. No, because they believe that horse is fine. And they, in their judgment, of course, they love that horse. They see that horse every day. They know that horse. They think the horse would have been fine. So I don't think it's that extreme. I think it's more, there's a vet that comes in. There's multiple vets. I actually believe that there's multiple vets that check these horses. I don't think it's the same vet for every horse the whole week, which I think is a good thing. You want multiple opinions. I don't think you should be putting that responsibility on one vet just alone. I do believe that there's a head vet, of course, that in the end will be the decision maker of this, but there's an entire team of veterinary professionals. So I do think it's a good thing. They decided that they thought there was just something slightly off there and they didn't want to take the risk. So I think it's a lot more in that gray area than what you were suggesting. That's what I was like, I don't completely agree with you there. There is
but you see, the thing is, Naomi,
and that's where we're in.
You're a deep thinker. You think about things correctly. And you'll look at this from a perspective of tiramisu. It's multi-layered. You'll go into, look, there's lots tiramisu. Of different nuances to this. There's a lot of people out there who'll just go, oh, hang on a second, those trainers are going to run a horse on sound. They won't think that, and that's the implication, and that needs to be sorted out, because there's no way Aidan O'Brien would do that, and there's no way Jessica Harrington would do that.
No. That's why I say it's that gray level of there was a difference of a professional opinion, and in the end, what was best for the horse and the event was done in their minds, in terms of the veterinary minds. And I understand that, and I respect that.
And there's also the postscript of the fact that Mountain Bear gets injured. And there was obviously nothing wrong with him, but that is another proof of the fact that he's going to be okay. He has to wear a cast for 4 weeks.
Yeah.
You cannot eliminate risk. If we tried to eliminate risk, none of us would board a plane ever again. We'd never fly. We wouldn't do any. We'd all just lock ourselves away in our homes. And we wouldn't do anything.
I agree with you, but that's still not a reason to then not have safety measures, right? So that's
I didn't say that. But there needs to be some sort of common sense. I believe the fee was something like 70 grand to get Gimme the Beat Boys over there, and they paid $1 million for him. I'm sure that owner is not stuck for a few quid, but that's a lot of money to be told on the day, a couple of hours before the race. Yeah, you're not running.
Sure. Yes. But also, it shouldn't matter in equine welfare. That's the risk you take, right?
True. Very true. And I'm sure there's some kind of insurance scheme in there anyway.
Because if you're going to run him just because you paid that much to bring him over, that's not the right reason.
Yeah, well,
and that's also not what they would have done anyway.
That too is very true. Right. Let's talk about Unquestionable. So he ends up winning. This is a 6th individual Group 1 winning 2-year-old for Aidan O'Brien this year. Another major success at the Breeders' Cup. He is now, well, after Auguste Rodin wins, he becomes the joint second winning most trainer in the history of the Breeders' Cup. A reminder to everybody that Aidan O'Brien is Irish and based in Ireland. That is phenomenal that he is achieving that, and he will probably be the leading trainer in Breeders' Cup history. He's already the leading trainer in Royal Ascot history. He's won more classics than any other trainer in the history of British racing from Ireland. It's phenomenal, and this was a terrific training performance to get the 1-2.
It was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I thought the ride by Frankie Dettori was very good as well, because what happened, he had 8 draw. He kind of let them go first a little bit. They went quite quick at the beginning of the race before they kind of came back to him, and that's when Frankie just kind of let him slide into. So really, that gradual, that what Ryan Moore likes to speak about, to getting the horse in a rhythm, really getting them that even pace in a rhythm. Frankie did all of that. Ends up sitting in second flight, perfect position. I thought Mountain Bear came with a
Ryan
really strong
switched to him, don't you?
Oh, no. Yeah, sorry. Ryan.
We'll get to Frankie and his farewell tour.
Frankie
that's not really a farewell tour
and
at all.
Inspiral and his 15th win. Absolutely. No. Yeah. Oh my God. No, I remember that. I remember that because the first thing that happened to me was like, oh, Ryan's on him now. I remember thinking that. And I definitely didn't note that down in my program. So I'm sitting here looking at that going, shit. Yes. As Ryan likes to say, no, it was a very, very good ride. So, look, if it was Frankie or Ryan, no, this is okay. Can we blame this on baby brain? Because I knew on the day Ryan was on him, and I clearly didn't note this down in my program. But I remember going, oh yeah, Ryan was on him because River Tiber got scratched, and Ryan ended up.
Naomi, if you're happy with blaming your unborn child for a mistake, I'm more than happy to do that too.
They say baby brain's a thing. And I should have made a note of this. So that's my own fault here, that I looked at my PPs that still have the old riders.
Are you having a boy or a girl?
Because I knew. A boy.
Oh, it's definitely his fault. For sure.
Stop. It's not your fault. It's fine. Look, no, it was a really, really strong ride. Like, it was very strong, very patient, perfectly timed. Look, we got another ride of Ryan to look forward to discuss, of course, with Auguste, Rodin, probably most talked ride of the entire 2 Breeders' Cup days. But Unquestionable, that was just picture perfect, textbook. And look, he was very, very strong. I thought Mountain Bear was strong late. He came with a really, really good close trying to catch him. You mentioned, unfortunately, after finish second, he got a displaced condylar fracture, I do believe. Aidan was mentioning that he's staying over in the States to recover. Probably it's going to take about a month, and then they'll travel him back to Ireland. So that's obviously good to hear. You were talking about the risk. Unfortunately, it's something that we can't exclude from any sports involving any living being, because we do, of course, see human athletes get injured all the time. Something we can't predict. But the difference is that we can tell them to sit on the couch and rest for a month and not use their leg. We can't really do that with horses. So, of course, the repercussions are just much more severe, unfortunately. And that's also why we're so stringent with the protocols that I do agree with, as much as frustrating as it can be. But anything to make sure that we mitigate the risk as much as possible. But yeah, brilliant performance, of course, by Aidan O'Brien. I don't think I need to hype up Aidan at this point. I think we all know that the man's a genius and that he's figured out how to prepare juvenile distance horses, sprinters, anything. You can basically give him anything. He'll produce you the Guineas winners. He'll produce you Derby winners. It's an incredible system that he's developed. Of course, incredible horseman, very precise. Don't really have anything to add here. Like, he just came up with an incredible team. I thought his horses looked brilliant. They came out every morning in that string. Everyone loved watching that. So there's a reason everyone wants to see what he does with these horses when they get there and how it works.
Yeah, I watched a lot of the gallop reports from Mike Walsh for Daily Racing Form, and he was just raving about how they were looking. He was warning everybody about Cherry Blossom, and he was spot on with that horse ended up running. But yeah, he just seemed to be really taken with how well they were working. And those gallop reports are invaluable information as well. Although he was wrong about Master of the Seas, but that's okay because he was right about Tamara and so much else. So we'll let him off with that one. We'll move on. So to the by the way, just a final note on Mountain Bear. He's come from the same listed race that Hit of the Bomb came from. So it's just worth bearing in mind if they're using that as a prep race next year. Even if that horse ends up being a double-figure price, they're probably using it as a proper prep for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. I think they would have had the 1, 2, 3 at River Tiber there. There was very little between them on speed figures, at least. They were basically the same horse. And I'd imagine French Guineas for Unquestionable next season. Just briefly on Big Evs, I think a lot of people will just assume Commonwealth Cup for him. I'd love to see him train for the King's Stand. If he trains on and retains the speed, I think that flat 5 furlongs at Royal Ascot, just point and shoot job. assuming he develops nicely over the winter.
So much speed. He has so much gate speed. You want to just use it, right? He's like a little pocket rocket that keeps going.
Yeah,
like I'd agree with you there. So just he'll blow them all out the water if he breaks well, like he did over the weekend. Like we know he can. He doesn't stop.
Try giving him the weight advantage as well for the 3-year-old allowance. Ooh, good night and good luck. He'll be away and gone. I thought we were away and gone with warm hearts in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf on the Friday. Right. I was nearly cheering in the studio, and then Frankie comes and nails us on the line. This was sensational from Frankie Dettori and Inspiral, credit where it's due. Although John Gosden didn't seem to be too enamored. He was saying, well, we couldn't win from that position, couldn't possibly, and yet somehow they have. Tremendous stuff, and she stays in training next year.
I thought Frankie rode her really cleverly because he dropped her back to get a more inside position with cover from that 6th gate, and of course the bend. Of course, you have that, like, you cross over that sort of the dirt track, so you want to have your horse balance, right? You want to be in a good position. So I thought he did that really, really well, and he saved her energy. This is a 1.25 miles they were going. Of course, in their most recent race, she'd be going a mile, so he was really just letting her relax, letting her settle, see how the pace unfolds. Produces a scintillating kick, right? You were right. Warm Heart looked like he had her, and she just right by it. Warm Heart had the jump on her. Warm Heart is pretty decent herself in the final stages, right? She's not one to easily reel in, and Inspiral managed to do so. And of course, kind of that fairy tale continues for Frankie Dettori now being in the US, not retiring just yet.
Oh, did you hear his interview afterwards?
I think I missed the interview because I was running around.
Oh, Naomi.
What did he say?
Oh, no. This whole thing has turned into an absolute farce.
Sticking around and then going to maybe Dubai or Saudi as well, right?
The whole thing's a nonsense. He gets presented with a plaque at Royal Ascot at the end of it.
Yeah.
Here's all your Royal Ascot winners, Frankie. Farewell. We will miss you. He gets presented with the Ascot Bell after a sensational ride on King of Steel in the Champion Stakes. No question. The only horse to come from off the pace, from off the gallop to close and win all day on Champions Day. Everything else either made the running or was prominent. Huge performance from King of Steel. Huge performance from Frankie. They give him the Ascot Bell. Farewell, Frankie. And straight after Inspiral wins, that lovely woman from NBC who does those great interviews on horseback says, and I believe this horse is staying training next year. Yeah, and I'd be disappointed if I'm not on her. So you're coming back to Royal Ascot next year. You're coming back to... Why did we do this?
Here's the thing. Heard that because it's hard to hear when you're at the track with all the crowds, right? It's hard sometimes to hear what the interview was. I didn't even hear, but I did know that his farewell tour wasn't feeling like much of a farewell tour anymore in the end when he decided to continue riding in the US.
If you promise Kilbeggan Racecourse Listowel Racecourse, apologies. If you promised Listowel Racecourse last year that you're going to turn up for the Harvest Festival, then you get banned for the ride on Torquato Tasso, so you can't make it. And you tell them, don't worry, I'll be there next year. And the team, Pat Cash-Healy and the team, they get on to him and say, right, Frankie, is everything okay? We're looking forward to having you come over. Yeah, that's all good. But the fee of $4,000, that's not going to cut it. It's 15 because it's the Frankie Farewell Tour. And of course they go, well, we're not paying that. That's an insane amount of money for one person for an appearance fee. So he's like, well, I'm not turning up though. Oisin Murphy turns up and has a great time there. It's not the Frankie Farewell Tour. It's the nobody forced you into retirement and nobody forced you to make a big thing about it Farewell Tour that he just milked for all it was worth. And it turns out he's coming back next year anyway. So it leaves a really sour taste in the mouth. Brilliant jockey. That atmosphere when he won on King of Steel, like, you know this, at the Cheltenham Festival, it's not surprising to hear a sing-song burst out. On the flat meetings, that doesn't happen. They were all yelling Frankie, Frankie, Frankie and singing songs, but it was like that atmosphere is amazing. And there are few jockeys who transcend the sport in the way he does, but this left a really sour taste. It left a bitter taste.
He's been an absolutely brilliant representative of a sport outside of the industry. So we do give him credit for that. That is a masterful feat. That's something that most people have not done, and we need desperately for the promotion of our sport. Is it unfortunate that he was going to go retire? Everyone did, and everyone was doing the farewell. Like you said, the fanfare was there with good reason. And now it turns out that obviously he's riding in the US. Well, that's, that's where he
He's
started.
Not at all.
I don't think he's retiring at all. That's obviously not really what you want to hear when everyone's put that on. I do wonder if he's going to come back to the UK, because I do remember that he has mentioned not too long ago, he's like, the way I went out in the UK, one, it was a fairy tale, right? Champion Stakes win, like you said, on King of Steel. And also it was the farewell tour that he was saying that he didn't think he was going to come back, because of course he's human. He knows that he's done the farewell tour. It was a brilliant ending. Can you top that? Would it make him feel good to come back and ride in the UK? Maybe not. But on the flip side, like you said, if Inspiral comes back, or Gosden has a brilliant 3-year-old for him to ride in the Guinness and the Derby, would he say no? Would you say no?
No. And you're entitled to change your mind. Like, they say that retirement is a killer. If you retire and you're enjoying playing golf, fantastic. But some people, they just can't handle that at all.
No.
And I change my mind the whole time. You're very familiar with this. I flip-flop on horses constantly. I'll be bullish about a horse one day and have a completely different opinion about it the next.
The difference is, though, the fact that we, there's a little bit less riding on us flip-flopping like that, right?
And we're not going around.
Farewell Naomi's choice of rider tour with Unquestionable River Diver.
Yeah, exactly. If the mission accomplished banner is hung over Glorious Goodwood, farewell Frankie, it's been fun. You can't rock up to Glorious Goodwood a year later and be like, hey everybody, how's it going? You can as a fan, you can in media, but not on the trail. The whole thing's been a farce.
I'm Warm Heart. Curious to see if he will come back to the UK. I think he's also going to do Dubai and Saudi, and he'll definitely be on the West Coast.
He'll be back now. He'll be back.
Yeah, I do wonder.
He'll be back. 10 furlongs next season. So I'm going to save the Inspiral question for you actually in a second. We'll move on to the Breeders' Cup Mile, which is won by Master of the Seas. Photo finish. I thought Charlie Appleby was all class in his interview with Brittany Yurton live on NBC, because they still haven't called it. And he said, I hope Maj won. Not because of Saeed. I hope Maj won because she's a half-sister to Modern Games. That was a class act thing to do, because it's been a tough season for Charlie Appleby. He really would have wanted to win. Saeed really wanted to win. It's all about that commentary from Larry Comas was fantastic too. It's all about the Godolphins here. As Oisin Murphy said afterwards, someone had to be second. It ended up being him, but William Buick from stall 13. This is Caracontite 2014 Breeders' Cup Mile all over again. Magic.
Brilliant, right? Yeah, especially because the mile start, you don't have that much time when the bend comes up, right? So you really have to have a game plan in your mind, like, where am I going to be? What am I going to do? And credit to him, he ended up positioning Master Seas as one of the back markers, which is the right thing to do, because when you looked at how the race unfolded, they went 45.37 for the half mile. So honest enough pace, field was strung out. So thankfully for him, that actually meant the pace was there to be at the back to then start picking off horses and slingshotting around the bend like he did. He kept that speed. He kept him balanced. He really made sure that that was just the beginning of his closing kick. Now, of course, Maj looked like she had it in the bag, right? Looked like she had it locked and loaded there. And look, Master of the Seas, that was sharp late. I mean, I guess we were saying, with some of the other runners, we've seen some really sharp late kicks. Master of the Seas was pretty visually impressive too.
Yeah, he did a fantastic finishing kick for this race, in fairness. And obviously the gelding operation has done him the world of good. I mean, this is one of the cool things about Godolphin. I find it odd that they geld as many horses as they do, but they don't throw them away. They keep them going. And last year, that resulted in a Breeders' Cup Turf win for Rebels Romance. That's gone horribly wrong this season, but I still retain the faith in that horse. And Master of the Seas, he's not getting any younger. He'll be 6. But there's not a whole lot in the older miler division in British racing to be concerned about. So they're going to take him to the Pegasus World Cup Turf.
One horse that's old in this race and who I've been hyping up because I'm in love with him, and he ran 3rd, Casa Creed. He's 7. And he ran 3rd. And I was so proud of him. Horse. Yeah, because he just keeps on going. And the Mott stable does such a good job with him. And it did with Channel Maker as well. I think it was a 9-year-old when they retired him. Also, Casa Creed is actually a horse still, which makes it even more interesting that they decided to just keep him going. Lee Einstetter is the owner there. I think they've had a wonderful ride. I just love this horse because I love the longevity of him, and the fact that we just don't see that this often anymore, especially a horse that's still intact, that they keep going. And I'm here for it, because that's kind of what you see in jump racing, right? You see these horses train on for longer, and then you really can fall in love with the horse as a fan. I've fallen in love with Kazakri. Like, I've seen him everywhere. You know, he says he was in Saudi, ran in Dubai. He tries his heart out every single time, multiple G1 winner. I had to give him some love here. Yes, he wasn't good enough to get to the Godolphin pair, but he ran a great race. He gave them a good try. And that's just, I don't know, making a case for keeping a horse in training. Because in the end, I think he was only half a length away from that pair, actually.
He's probably run up to his...
a cracker.
He's probably run up to his best form, to be fair. And it's got to be really difficult to keep a full horse in training at 7 and keep their mind on the job. Aidan O'Brien managed to do it with Yates. Was Yates 4 when he won his 4th Gold Cup? I think he was, which was just extraordinary. So to keep a horse...
How old was he? Did you say he was 4 when he won his 4th?
No, I think he was 8. Did I say 4?
Yeah, you said 4. That's what I was like, that's not possible. 8.
Yeah, if I managed to balls that one up.
Then. First, right? Would have been 4.
He was... I think he was... Do you know what? Maybe he was...
3.
No, it was 5, 6, 7, and 8. I'm pretty certain that's how it went, because I think he won the Coronation Cup at 4, and I have a feeling he made his debut in the Gold Cup in his 5-year-old season. I think he did. I think he won that first time up. There is a painting, not a painting, there is a picture signed by Aidan O'Brien and Johnny Murtagh in this house, which I might just put behind us, of Yates. Of him strutting his stuff at Ascot, winning his 4th. Magic horse, one of my favorite horses of all time. But to keep a full horse in training for that length of time and keep their mind on the job, really difficult thing to do. So for Kazakri to finish 3rd there, I would not underestimate that performance at all.
I just had to give him a shout out.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Such a lovely performance. Like I'm here for that. I think I touted him on another podcast. As I said, I think he might be able to run 3rd. I didn't think he was going to win, but he always runs. He always tries. So if you get a big price and he runs in the placings, there you go.
You got to have him for the exotics. Speaking of exotics, we'll come to that in a second. Master of the Seas is off to the Pegasus World Cup Turf International for his next start. Moj back in training next year. She'll begin in Dubai.
Lovely. I mean, wouldn't have expected anything less, right? Godolphin, you want to have runners in Dubai. And Saeed, that's his home turf.
And to be fair, she was deadly there in Meydan earlier in the season and was able to win 1,000 guineas on the back of it. So it all worked out quite well. Speaking of exotics, Naomi, I don't know if you're aware of this, but on the Final Furlong podcast, Tim Carroll and Barry Faulkner banged in a boatload of winners on a show you were supposed to be on, but unfortunately time was not on our side and we couldn't quite make it work.
It was like, have no fear. A 9-hour time difference in the end, or like
just a 9-hour time difference in the end, and you were doing a lot of shooting in Compton. I mean, filming in Compton. Yeah, there we go. Anyway, we got the exacta in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. We got the exacta in the Breeders' Cup Turf, and the trifecta. Let's go! Nice. And I was super, super confident about this. Ooh. I can't really explain. Well, I can't explain to you why. Didn't fancy King of Steel in the slightest. I think he's a lovely horse, and I think he's run a super race on the back of a gut-busting race only 2 weeks previous, and it was asking an awful lot.
At all.
Didn't like Mostahdaf for 1 second in this race, and when they rounded the final turn, I did slump in my chair and go, "Oh no," because he was going quite well. I thought, "Oh no." He's gonna do it, but my eyes were always drawn to Auguste Rodin, and once he hits the front, I'm no longer just hoping that he wins. I'm now just hoping that up to the mark and Sherar stay where they are, and that nothing closes on them too much. And thankfully, Gold Phoenix, we almost had the superfecta, the 4, because we had Onesto as well, but not really, because he's never really gaining enough ground on King of Steel and Gold Phoenix. But for those who followed us in, you're welcome. Hopefully more great success coming soon on the Final Furlong podcast. This ride from Ryan Moore has been the subject of a lot of discussion. We talked about it on TalkSport 2 yesterday. The opening line of the question from Lee McKenzie was, is this overrated? Now, he was being playful. He was being very, very playful and just trying to stir things up a lot. This is one of the best rides I've seen at the Breeders' Cup. And I understand if you're watching the closing stages of this race, you see the final turn, you're like, that's a fluke. They've just the highways opened up for him, the golden highway for Auguste Rodin.
Yeah, there
That's
was
why he's
so
won.
much going on before that, though.
It's
There was
early in the race, Naomi.
so much
Exactly.
going on.
It's
Yeah.
very early in the race.
I remember
This
just
is
watching it
brilliant
going, what?
horsemanship
Like,
from Ryan Moore.
there was, like, even just watching it without solely focusing on Auguste Rodin, you can see from the get-go that there is so much shuffling in that race, right? You can see horses coming out, horses getting checked, and you're just like, what's going on here? Like that normally you don't see that as much over a race that's a mile and a half, right? You take some time and you gradually get your position or where you want to be. There was some aggressive positioning going on. This was not, I think Ryan Moore reflected on that in the post race conference as well, kind of saying there was some stuff going on that we normally don't see happening, which is his way of saying like this. He was like, yeah, I was on plan F when the rail opened, is basically what he said. So yeah, if I can run you through it, because I was looking at it again this morning, just so like it's so interesting, right? Right from the start, Auguste Rodin gets taken out of position because Up to the Mark switches outwards and Auguste Rodin kind of gets carried out. Now then Ryan gets moved over another few times because there's so much shuffling around going on. Then Broom comes in a touch, causing Up to the Mark to come in again. And then Auguste Rodin got moved again quite sharply. And this was all in like the first half mile of a mile and a half race.
He gets short of room between both Mostadaf and King of Steel. And then when Broom goes by him and they're approaching that piece of dirt on the track, he almost goes into the back of King of Steel.
He was not having a good time.
No. And he was fired up at that point too. He was completely lit up.
Yeah. I think Ryan did a brilliant job saying, he said that afterwards, so I just wanted to get him into a rhythm. I wasn't happy where I was, but I just wanted to give the horse a chance to get into a rhythm, which was the right thing to do. Because if you then start making sharp moves, right, the horse is already lit up, you're not happy where you are. That wasn't gonna work. So Ryan, being the ice cold jockey that he is, goes, okay, we're just gonna chill for a second. Ends up starting to move over to the inside after about 3/4 miles with some space on his inside, seemingly gets into a better position. His horse settles down. And that's when it even gets better, right? That's when they really start to unfold in that race, because this is what's most talked about, the final stages. Broom starts to come back, causing Charrier and Christophe Lemaire to go, I don't like where I am. I want to switch to the outside. Comes to the outside, takes Mostadaf, King of Steel, with him. So they all move to the outside, which is what we see, that fanning on the bend, right? Really like all the horses doing this. And Ryan, still with the space on his inside, still on the rail, scoots through and, keeps Auguste Rodin balanced, because that's not an easy thing to do, to, proper cut a corner, add speed, and then just starts within like 3 strides is 2 lengths or a length and a half in front of Up to the Mark, who had a more front running position. Incredible. I then later on read that the fastest section of that race was run by Auguste Rodin in the final furlong, like 11.2 seconds. Insane.
Monster.
Yes, Ryan did a terrific job, but Auguste Rodin, he had horse, right? Auguste Rodin was there for him. That horse is so talented. After all of this, right? After everything that wasn't going his way, to still produce a closing kick like that, we knew he was a good horse, right? Dual Derby winner, Irish champion winner. But he just kind of like upped that. He just went, let me show you here. Like that was very, very impressive to me. I still thought, Mostadaf would be interesting in this race. In the end, obviously, wasn't able to kick like I hoped he would kick, but Auguste Rodin really stamped himself as, one of the most talented longer distance, I say mile and a half here, mile and a quarter kind of runners that you see here on the turf. Incredible.
He's an incredible story, and trying to figure out why he bombed out in the Guineas and the King George. I think we could blow our heads apart here if we tried to figure that one out. It seems as though they're not able to figure it out either. There's a theory that he no longer likes traveling on the day. Ballydoyle horses wake up when they're running in the UK or running in France. They wake up at Ballydoyle and they go to sleep at Ballydoyle. They fly out that morning and fly back that night. That's what he would have done for the futurity, and that was on heavy ground. And they really thought about withdrawing him that day and decided, no, let's let him take his chance. And I wonder if that left a mark on him, if he just didn't like it at all. And if it's not just the fact that when he goes over for the Guineas, he would have flown over that morning, flew back that night. When he goes for the King George, flew over that morning, flew back that night. He didn't for the Derby, because the Derby was on at 1:30, and they were afraid that he would miss the race due to flight congestion. So they took him over on the Thursday. I remember talking to Aidan O'Brien about this before the Derby. So he was in Epsom, or at least in the UK, for a couple of days before that win. Whatever it is, when he's on form, there's few that can stop him. And I think he just prefers a sounder surface. I think that I'm guessing that experience of winning on heavy ground just left some bit of a mark on him, and he doesn't want to repeat that again. It was terrible ground in the Guineas. It wasn't great in the King George. But aside from that, Naomi, he's a futurity winner, Group 1 over a mile, a dual classic winner with 2 derbies. He wasn't visually impressive in the Irish Derby. It was a dominant win for Aidan O'Brien, 1, 2, 3, 4. But the horse he does beat goes on to be second in the Grand Prix de Paris and then wins a group race on Irish Champions Weekend. And after bombing out in the King George, he goes and wins the Irish Champion Stakes, which is one of the most prestigious 10 furlong all-age Group 1s in the world. And he's a fair and square winner of that. And now he's a Breeders' Cup Turf for Hero too. So my question for you is, if I give you the power to make the Coolmore decisions, what do you do with Auguste Rodin? Do you bring him back as a 4-year-old and aim him for the classic? Do you make some kind of a deal with the Japanese bloodstock agencies and stand him in Japan as a son of Deep Impact? Do you take the fact that he unites the 2 continents together, which is a phrase we hear Coolmore and Aidan O'Brien use a lot, and stand him in Ashford or stand him in Feathered? What do you do with him?
From a fan point of view, yes. I would race him as a 4-year-old and I would bring him back. There's so many options. I think he got the invite for the Japan Cup as well. Of course, I think he got 5 invites at this point. He's been winning qualifying races left, right, and center. Of course, that comes up at the end of the year, so perhaps they're going to give him a break.
He's basically ruled it out.
He's like, he's going to take a break. They won't be bringing him there, but to bring him back, to get the classic. And then we were discussing this, right? You have a horse, if they then win on dirt and turf, how cool that will be. But from a financial point of view and from a business point of view, I don't see what he would have left to prove to become a terrific stallion. That's very much sought after. So from a business point of view, I would not continue, because that's unfortunately not what's done anymore, because we are looking at keeping a business going, right? Coolmore has done that incredibly well. Their business acumen has brought them where they are right now. And they've done tremendous things within the sport and for the sport. So do they owe it to us to race this horse another year? No. Would I like to see the horse race another year? Yes. Yes. Come on, please. So yeah, I'm kind of curious to see what they'll do. I know.
I was surprised by how
I would probably do if I was Coolmore in that.
Yeah. I mean, look, you know that I'm a huge jumps fan. I love the flat as well, obviously, which is why we're talking about the Breeders' Cup. Jumps racing, you were alluding to earlier on about the fact that one of the reasons people love it is because those horses come back year in, year out. We're recording this on Thursday, the 9th of November. Allaho came back from injury today and bolted up in a 3-runner race, and hopefully will go for the King George. Don't know, haven't heard what Willie Mullins said, but irrespective of, he could go for a 3rd Ryanair at the Cheltenham Festival. We get to know those horses. We get to know the form of them. In the flat game, you have to accept the fact that these horses are going to be the suppliers, ironically, of jumps horses in years to come. And without the flat game, we don't have jumps horses. So these horses, they're only in ownership at Coolmore for one thing and one thing only: to be a champion and then stand as a stallion. And if they're not good enough for that, they will be sold to race for somebody else. And they're exception. There's nobody better in the world at producing racehorses than them.
Oh, 100%.
But I was surprised by how engaging MV Magner was with the idea with Nick Luck in the post interview about coming back next year. I was surprised he even suggested it. I was surprised Matt
No,
Chapman
he
wasn't
mentioned
working
it.
in an official capacity, but he was there and he interviewed Michael Tabor. Yeah, good old Chappers. But he got a great interview with Tabor. And Michael Tabor tends to just say it how it is. And he was giving the indication. He basically said he's not getting any younger and he wants to win the Breeders' Cup Classic. And this is the closest thing they've got to a horse that could do it, with the exception of what City of Troy could be. So he was leaning towards, let's come back next year.
They might be getting towards that more emotional fan side that I was talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I would love to see it. I think it'd be brilliant.
I guess.
Does this horse need to do it for his career as a stallion? No.
No, he doesn't. I guess there is going to be a question mark. There's going to be a premium on a Derby stallion, although this would include him. Of the last 6 Derby winners, only one stands at stud. Now, there are varying different reasons for that. Some of them tragic, but that's not good. That's currently what it is. Now, he is one of those horses. I would imagine that they would put a premium on his stallion fee. But I wonder how many of the people who would be sending mares to him would also be thinking,
yeah, but he's not just a Derby winner. You were talking about his Juvenile campaign as well. He showed
of course, yeah.
He showed speed. I find that slightly different than a horse that just won the Derby and probably wasn't that good as a 2-year-old or wasn't that good over the shorter distances. That's not the same with Auguste Rodin. He showed a little bit more than that, a little bit more dimension. So I hope that from a breeding point of view, people do see that.
Plus, he's a deep impact out of a Galileo mare. He should be better at 4. In theory, he should be better at 4. But I do wonder if breeders and people who'd be buying at the sales would just take one look at Auguste Rodin and go, yeah, didn't he bomb out twice and there's no explanation for why? Like, does he need to do something else as a 4-year-old? Because it's not like the Galileo. Galileos just would run through a brick wall. They didn't seem to be able to cope with anything. Obviously, not all of them, but the majority of them did. I think they've got nothing to lose by bringing him back. And if they did bring him back next year, Tattersalls Gold Cup would be an easy win for him. He would take the only horse that could beat him in the Prince of Wales Stakes is Inspiral. And every now and again, Inspiral throws in an off day, similar to Auguste Rodin. But there's nothing to really threaten him in those races. And then you mightn't even have to take on the 3-year-olds, because if you are going to go for the Classic and you've won those 2 Group 1s as a 4-year-old, you're probably heading for the Travers or the Jockey Club Gold Cup or something like that to prep for the Classic, and then it's the Breeders' Cup Classic. And if you can win that, surely it's just an ATM machine then at that point. This is a Securicor van outside Coolmore, and it's a license to print money.
Yes, but again, from that breeding point of view, stallion prospect, he does not need to be a dual surface winner. We were discussing this before the show, and I was looking up Catholic Boy, who is a Travers winner and then won the Belmont Derby Invitational at Belmont, which is a turf race. So he is a Grade 1 winner on both surfaces. Is it as popular as we think it would be? Debatable.
Yeah.
Just from that point of view, that as a breeder, you are looking for a certain type of horse to gain from your breeding, right? Let's say I've got a mare and she's got a little bit of speed. She can win over 6-7, but I really want a Guineas horse. So I'm going to go, okay, well, I can get a really good miler, or maybe I can just get up to a horse, maybe like Auguste Rodin, and still get there, right? Does that need to include any dirt? No, it does not. Right? Is that silly to say? Like, I just don't.
No, it's not.
We breed very specifically. And if you're breeding a sprinter, you're going to be going with sprinters and you're going to be going on the turf because that's what you look for. I just think that we are very specific in the way we do things, right? We're kind of like, this is what I'm going to add. This is what I hope to see. And you hope it works out. You hope you get a healthy foal. And you hope that what you thought worked in terms of the breeding lines, that, of course, Coolmore is such an expert in developing, that it works out. Do you need to have dirt for Auguste Rodin when he's such a superstar on the turf? Depends what you want from him from a breeding point of view. I guess you were mentioning, do they want to send him at Ashford in the United States? Is that making more appealing to the breeders here in the US? Sure, because he's now got dirt on his pedigree, but it's still not an out-and-out dirt runner. So I have my questions there, but then again, I'm not a breeder, and there is people like you were saying before that are much brighter than me who would have strong opinions on that. But that's sort of my first inclination, is to go, is it needed? No. Do they want to, from a fan point of view, from an emotional point of view? Then by all means, go do it. because it's awesome when it happens, right? I mean, Ravens Pass, the classic was pretty awesome, except that wasn't dirt, that was all
synthetic.
weather. So yeah.
Do you remember how they ripped up that synthetic track really quickly after the Europeans had a 1-2 in the Breeders' Cup Classic?
I don't think that was the reason they got rid of it.
Oh yeah, sure, that wasn't the
initial reason. No, that was
sure, that wasn't the reason.
It was put in place because it was deemed to be safer with lower fatality rates. And then I think a lot of trainers and horsemen said that they didn't like it for their horses. Of course, everyone's very used to training and racing on dirt, and people weren't happy with it, and that's in the end why they went away again. But I could be wrong.
To be fair, I mean, Dubai had put down a Tapeta surface as well, or whatever the pronunciation is. They put down an all-weather track as well, and they had to rip it up because the Americans wouldn't come over anymore. And on our side of the pond, there would be a lot of people who would look at dirt racing and just say, I don't like this. I don't like how it looks. I don't like how those races finish. And there is
because it's different finish. It's a completely different style of running finish, on it because of the surface, because of the way the surface doesn't give back the energy that turf does. Turf bounces, right? You have some slide, you have some bounce.
There would be a perception on this side of the pond that it's much more of an equine welfare situation, that surface. But here's what I would say. Back in the day, Vincent O'Brien, John Magner, and Robert Sangster, and I would highly recommend the Robert Sangster book is now available in audiobook, by the way, Horse Trader. It's amazing.
Oh,
it's fantastic.
I've read it like twice. It's awesome.
Oh, it's brilliant, isn't it? It's if you are looking for a new book, it's now available as an audiobook. The Sangster's Commission.
Well, it's like enjoyable reading.
Incredible stuff. But back in the day, John Magner, Robert Sangster, and Vincent O'Brien decided to tap into the oil well of Northern Dancer and bring his progeny over to Europe. So why are you taking a dirt stallion and thinking that that's going to dominate? Well, they were right. They produced the best stallions in the world, Sadler's Wells, Galileo, the whole story continues. So if you want to continue to have amazing horses, you need dirt racing. And if you rip it up in America and replace it with synthetics, then all those horses who are bred for the dirt suddenly don't have a surface to run on. And some of them might adapt, but others wouldn't. So I think it's a pretty unfair thing to just get rid of all that heritage and history and replace it with a synthetic. I'm being a little bit facetious when I say, oh, they've only done it because the Europeans won. That's what it was all about. Up to the Mark ran a massive race. His form had been franked in the Breeders' Cup Mile, Master of the Seas. I don't think there was any issue about him staying either. Any idea about what they're going to do with him next season?
I have to have a look. At the moment, I must admit, I haven't fully dived into where everyone's going after this. I just took a breather after the Breeders' Cup.
I wouldn't blame you.
But look, I think Up to the Mark is such a good horse. Like I remember when I saw him win at Keeneland, I was like, this is a serious turf runner. Now you have to show up against the Euros, and he did. Yeah. And he did. So I'm quite excited to see where they'll head with him. But of course, Top Lecture, he'll find a good spot for him.
Oh, hold on.
Think that the way
he's been retired. he's
Has he really?
Stud.
Oh my God.
Yeah, $25,000 stud fee. One of the reasons I liked him.
That's literally been. I don't know if you've noticed, but these last 3 days, everyone's been retired.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Everyone.
They are dropping like flies. One of the reasons I liked him so much is that surely he would have had a huge chance in the mile, and that's the best Breeders' Cup turf since High Chaparral and Johar dead heated in 2003. Yeah,
so
but the fact that Todd Pletcher was so insistent that no, we're going to go for the best Breeders' Cup turf in 20 years and run him there, that made me feel like he's going to run a huge race. Shearer, after the wind up, clearly back to himself. We'll see what they do with him going forward. King of Steel, I don't think this was a bad run from King of Steel at all. And he shapes like, I don't think he will necessarily overtake Auguste Rodin next year. And look, the reality is that when Auguste Rodin doesn't...
How would you...
Well,
you have to be pretty good to overtake Auguste Rodin.
Yeah, exactly. When Auguste Rodin doesn't fall out the back of the telly, he just beats him every single time. Every time they've met, Auguste Rodin has finished in front with the exception of the King George. And that day, King of Steel was fairly put in his place. But he's a lovely horse and he should be a really good 4-year-old.
I'd love to see more. Have you also seen King of Steel, that picture that Roger Varian and Hanako Varian, they put their daughter on top of him?
Yes,
and
gas.
She just sat on top of him. And I'm like, now that's what you love in a racehorse, right? That kind of temperament to still kind of be chill enough and then to be that caliber. they've done a great job with that horse. They're also such a lovely team. I think
plenty of
really,
horses who would kick and buck and go absolutely completely nuts
sure.
With anybody around them, let alone a kid. Mostadaf, so that's his last run. That's him done. I don't think he deserved the rating he got. I don't think he was ever the second best horse in the world. I think that Prince of Wales was visually very impressive. He was ridden like the best horse in the race. The form was awful. I'll give you Luxembourg, but I think that race went very badly wrong for him tactically. Everything else in behind. Sir Michael Stout had 27 winners all season. Baybridge was never able to fire in the way that he did the previous year. Okay, but
what about his judgment? His judgment was lovely.
Tactically different ride, and you're facing a Paddington who, if you look at Racing Post ratings, was on the decline.
I was gonna say beat Paddington fair and square in that.
I
can't
think
really completely knock Mostadaf. He's shown up.
You will never take those Group 1 wins away from him, and he deserves the 2. I don't think he was ever the second best horse in the world, but well done to the Gosdens for getting the 2 wins out of him. That was a brilliant tactical ride from Frankie. It was a great ride from Jim Crowley in the Prince of Wales Stakes. I think you met a Paddington who had probably peaked in the Eclipse and was on the downward trajectory of his career, even when he won the Sussex Stakes, when he sailed through the mud that day, and he was beaten 25 lengths in the QE2, Naomi. I don't think that's the Paddington that we really thought it was in the Juddmonte. I could be way wrong about that. It's entirely possible that what happened here is he ends up getting carried wide or having to go wide under Jim Crowley, and that didn't work out. But it wasn't a problem for Inspiral, and it wasn't a problem for Master of the Seas, to be fair. So I wouldn't bash Jim Crowley in the way that some have. I think he had a very nice horse, a very high caliber Group 1 horse, not the second best horse in the world at that time.
Well, I already think that I think you should always take those ratings with a little pinch of salt, because they're based on one performance and not based on a body of work, right? So you're looking at one really peak performance, and that's brilliant. That's how they work. But you got to be aware of that it's not, but this horse should be the top horse in the world because his body of work this year was better. That's not how those ratings work. A horse can be in those ratings twice based on 2 different performances. So I think that's how you want to evaluate it. I think Mostadaf had, a few really strong races that he had really good tactical rides, evenly run races, right? That makes you run from A to B a little bit faster if you keep an even pace. That makes you look better than you are because it's easier to do, right? Whereas if you're looking at Auguste Rodin in the British Cup Turf, that was like ding, 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 ding. Right? That's harder. That's harder. That's a lot harder. Yeah, he's like everywhere.
Are you conducting?
I mean, in terms of the pace and in terms of his position, it was all over the place because of everything that was going on. That is, that does not help a horse when it comes to those kind of speed ratings, trying to take that into account. That's tough, right? Those are sort of micro races or micro efforts within the race that take a lot out of a horse. That's what I'm trying to say in terms of the ratings, in terms of what they do of the world's best racehorse. Don't always agree with it, but I do get what they do and what they're trying to do and how you're supposed to look at it.
We can react, because by the time this goes out, this will no longer be embargoed. So we can react to the Cartier Horse of the Year Awards, in which Mostadaf is Older Horse of the Year, which, to be fair, I wouldn't have any disagreement with that. He was brilliant in the Prince of Wales, brilliant in the Juvenile International. I just don't think he was the second best horse in the year. And that would have been behind Equinox, by the way. But the Cartier Horse of the Year is another horse who's been retired, Ace Impact. And if you were to do a theoretical... Yeah, so I don't disagree with that. I think if you were to judge those ratings, like Auguste Rodin did not go for the Arc. He was never being trained for it. It was never under consideration. Although in hindsight, they couldn't have imagined it to be good to firm ground at Paris Longchamp. And it basically rode like it was. Clearly, Aesop's Fables...
Because it never happens. Because it's always raining.
Global warming, Naomi.
It's always raining at
Global
the Arc.
warming. Whatever's going on, this whole thing has gone mad. By the way, that French... I saw some of the Daily Racing Forum guys calling this out as well. They're 100% right. The going descriptions for Paris Longchamp were an embarrassment. You had various different agencies saying soft ground, sit with a straight face. Oh, that's soft ground.
Right.
No, it wasn't. It was... John Gosden even said on Arc Day, that's closer to good to firm than anything else. So that needs to be sorted out, because
So
we as
interesting.
fans,
it's good to soft officially on the racing post when you go into the race, is what the end rating says. Good to soft.
Yeah, Gosden was saying on the day that's riding closer to good to firm. And look, going is a massive tool in terms of placing a bet. It's a massive, like, it's one of the most vital things in form analysis. And by the way, I'm not having a go at the Racing Post. I'm going to go with the French. They need to sort that stuff out. Seriously, cheese-eating surrender monkeys, as groundskeeper Willie would say. But Ace Impact, Horse of the Year, your reaction?
Look, he's the ARC winner, right? And historically speaking, the ARC has been one of the most highest rated races alongside the Juvenile. So it's a tough race to win. It was a good race this year. I don't know. Honestly, no.
Go off, Naomi. Tell us
no,
what you really think,
no,
Naomi. Come on. He's an overrated cheese-eating surrender monkey.
Okay, I do. Sorry, I'm just saying what? No. Look, we've talked about Auguste Rodin. From that performance, I would like to have him get that award based on what he's performed like and what he's done. But then again, who am I to judge that? I don't think when it comes look, Ace Impact, that was a great performance. Winning the ARC is no mean feat. And he's, he had a nice little setup. He's won other Grade 1 races throughout the year, because I think when it comes to Horse of the Year, you want to see a body of work, right? You want to see a horse peaking throughout the year, not just one race. We want to see him peaking throughout the year. Ace Impact, he won the Prix de Jockey Club, so he's done, so he sort of tick those boxes. You really can't fault him. The horse is undefeated. But I also think that when you look at a horse like Auguste Rodin, which I'm now coming back to, he's not shied away of some of the toughest competition you can find.
Yes, Naomi.
That to me says a lot more about the quality of the horse than what I would have seen from Ace Impact. Not to diss any of the other horses, but I think Auguste Rodin has faced much tougher horses than Ace Impact ever has. So, yeah, that's my 2 cents. But I don't want to, I'm not dissing Ace Impact. I'm very happy for the connections. I just, a little surprised by that.
First French winner for 10 years. Trev in 2013 was the last French Cartier Horse of the Year.
I mean, Trev.
Oh,
that's deserving.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Very deserving. Very, very deserving. I just think I do get that you can knock a horse like Auguste Rodin based on the fact that there was times he didn't turn up. Mostly, I think, was sometimes the ground he didn't like and things like that. And I do think they obviously take that into account. But in horse racing, I just don't think that unbeaten, but maybe not as challenged, should go over a horse that has been beaten but didn't shy away from those tough races from a sports point of view for me.
Well, to back you up, here's one for you. He might have bummed out in the Guineas and he might have bummed out in the King George, but at least they ran him. And the King George is not a fashionable race for 3-year-olds anymore, and it's very difficult to go. It used to be that the Guineas was the best trial for the Derby, but that hasn't always been the case in recent years. And I'd say it was when Kieran Fallon came in as the stable jockey to Ballydoyle that they changed something changed there, that the Guineas then became a prep for the Derby. They used it for St. Nicholas Abbey. They used it for Australia, for Camelot. Obviously, he did the Guineas and Derby double and then was denied controversially in the St. Leger for the Triple Crown by a certain Mohammed El Zaruni. But they did show up to all those big occasions. And okay, it didn't happen at Newmarket and it didn't happen in Ascot, but everywhere else he fired and everywhere else he performed really well. I do think Ace Impact was a spectacular racehorse, and it's a real shame that he's been retired. Lee Motterstead was making the point on the Racing Post. He was making the point on Look on Sunday not so long ago that it would be unthinkable in Japan for a 3-year-old to be retired at the peak of their powers. They'd be like, what are you doing? That horse is obviously he's coming back. It's just not the way Northern Hemisphere horses are treated. Yeah, very, very different. Who do you think was second?
Oh, Horse of the Year, second.
Spoiler alert, it was not Auguste Rodin.
No, I figured it wouldn't be, because otherwise you would have already told me that it was like a close second. Most of that then. No. Equinox.
Yeah, I don't understand where
Now
he is on this list. I don't get it. He beat Paddington.
What?
Ace Impact takes the Premier Equine Award ahead of Paddington, a 4-time Group 1 winner in 2023. Jewel Darby and Royal Bahrain Irish Champion Stakes victor Auguste Rodin and
Well, I guess
Mostadaf.
obviously I can't say Equinox because it's the Cartier, so that's British, isn't it? So that already screwed me up. I was thinking of the Longines World's Best rankings. I was like, where's Equinox on this?
He'll win that.
He's at the top of that. I was like thinking of the wrong horses, but then you'd start thinking of Mostadaf, no?
Yeah, they seem to think the same as me. Like that horse wasn't ever the second best horse in the world. But he gets the older title. So, and to be fair, he very much deserves the older horse of the year. So yeah, three-year-old award goes to Ace Impact, beats Paddington, Auguste Rodin, and Big Rock. Cartier 3-year-old filly of the year is Tahira. Can't have any argument with that. No. Although I would have argued that if Warm Heart had won the Juvenile turf, if she'd won the filly and mare turf, she would have won it. She's very underrated this season. Dual Group 1 winner, narrowly beaten in the Breeders' Cup. She would have been a big player, but Chris Hayes and Tahira with Dermot Wild, they had a fantastic season. Sprinter of the year, Shaquille. Okay. Cartier Stair, Trushan. Okay, moving along. 2-year-old filly was Opera Singer, and the 2-year-old is pretty obvious. City of Troy.
Yeah, can't really argue with those, to be honest. I think the horse of the year is the only one that I'm a little bit like.
Yeah.
And again, you want horses, you want multiple horses to be in contention for that, right? Talking about the different layers again. It's good to see multiple horses, all different ages, be right there on top of that. I think that's a good thing. That means that we had a healthy season with good competition. Do I agree with their judgment? No, but that's okay.
Next year, Naomi Tukker will be on the Cartier Horse of the Year voting panel. Yeah, listen, it's going to be intriguing. It's going to be intriguing to see how it all pans out in terms of what happens next year with if Auguste Rodin does stay in training. The Coolmore stud fees have been announced for next year. The roster has been announced. He's not on it. This did happen before. I can't remember who it was with. Yeah, this did happen before, and we all got excited about a horse coming back, and they didn't.
Put him on it. Look, we live in an internet age. You can change anything real quick. You don't need to announce and then put pamphlets through people's door.
Exactly.
You just go, here is the website. Look at our new webpage for Auguste Rodin.
And they've got Continuous, who's by Heart's Cry for next year, and he ran a huge race in the Arc after the St. Leger win. So I think he's going to be a big player in older middle distance races. I don't think he's a cup horse. I think he'll be a proper middle distance horse next season. I'm guessing Luxembourg comes back next year because he didn't really perform to the extent that they would have wanted. He got one Group 1 win in the Telesouls Gold Cup. He was narrowly beaten by Auguste Rodin in the Irish champion in defense of his crown. I'd say he'll come back, but Hong Kong is next on the agenda for him. Anything else on the dirt? One horse from the dirt. I think we're both going to agree on who this horse is.
Cody's Wish.
Yeah, of course.
That has to be. It aside from the fact that the horse is an incredible racehorse, right? It's nearly like he's overshadowed by the beautiful story and now, unfortunately, tragic story behind his naming. But this is an incredible racehorse. Like if you look at his bodies, of course, back-to-back Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile winners, but in between that one, the Met Mile, then won the Vosper going a bit shorter. This is an incredible racehorse, of course, named after Cody Dorman, who unfortunately, sadly passed away traveling back from the Breeders' Cup afterwards. I think it was the Sunday in the end. Of course, Cody Dorman and Cody's Wish met when Cody's Wish was still a bit of a baby, a yearling. And they had a sort of a special connection. I think that was through the A Wish Foundation that they met at Godolphin, and that the team at Godolphin was very kind to, let them see each other and let them interact. And there was quite a special bond between the two of them. And to then, such a high with the horse winning a second Breeders' Cup win, Cody being there with his family, just that kind of special story that we don't see that often in racing. Cody has the Wolf-Hirschhorn syndrome, which is a genetic disorder which can cause intellectual disability, delayed growth, was in a wheelchair. But the two, Cody's Wish and Cody Dorman, had a bond. Like there was something there. And of course, Cody's family, Kelly Dorman, his father, was very vocal about that, how they saw a change in their son after he met Cody's Wish and going to the races and cheering on for the horse that was named after him. So that was so beautiful. And then to hear on that, well, I think the Monday the news came out, but to hear that unfortunately Cody was no longer with us was, I don't really have the right words to describe it. That's, you come from such a beautiful high, from such a fairy tale story, not one British Cup win, but two. To then hear this is just, incredibly saddening, tragic. And of course, you hope to think that Cody at least had a wonderful last few days seeing his horse, right, win the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. I think that's maybe the only comforting thought in this, that he had that.
I don't want to sound like I don't want to sound heartless, but it must have been an incredibly painful existence. And if there's anything that can be said about it, is I'm sure that this horse and that journey and the journey that they went on gave him some light relief and some bit of escapism from it's unthinkable, Naomi. And there's no words, there's nothing you can say about it. I know the HHH podcast, which I have to say, I've only stumbled across that lately. They did a tribute to him, and they spoke about it eloquently. What Godolphin did during all of this, that's phenomenal, and they deserve an incredible amount of praise and all the goodwill in the world, because they didn't have to do this. They did not have to. They're a breeding operation and a racing operation. My goodness, they were. It just seems as though he became he was made to feel like he was an integral part of the entire process and every step of the way. Like, that's incredible. But if you scripted it, Naomi, if you and I are watching a film and it's about this kid who has this horrible disease that he'll never be able to get away from, that there is no cure for, and the Make-A-Wish Foundation allow him to set up this thing where he's able to go to Godolphin and he meets a foal, and that foal comes up to him and puts his head in his lap. And from that moment, he becomes Cody's Wish. And that horse goes on to become a multiple Grade 1 winner and dual Breeders' Cup champion. You turn it off and go, this is nonsense. That couldn't possibly be real. Hollywood crap. It's real.
It's too perfect, right? It's too beautiful. You
could never. Of all of the horses, Naomi, of all of them, it was him, and he goes on to be a multiple champion. It's insane. It's an incredible story, and maybe poor Cody was just hanging on for that day. I don't know. I don't know what happened to him. But well done to everybody involved. Well done to his family and how open they were and trying to fundraise for people who also have that disease. And my goodness, Godolphin deserved an amazing amount of praise for everything they did. That they were so good and so kind. It's that this world needs kindness, and they all were, and everybody at the Breeders' Cup as well. Everybody who went out of the way. It's I never met Cody. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut when I read that Monday. You could not. I think you'd have to have a heart of stone not to be moved by it.
That was when I read that. I kind of, when you take a double take, you're like, wait, what do you mean? It was like I didn't believe it. I didn't properly fathom what I just read, because in your mind, this doesn't happen, right? I mean, in your mind, you're still thinking about the most amazing week and how special it was. And then to hear this, you take a few moments to even just grasp what the Dormans just lost and what we lost, of course, in racing, but also to straight away go, this was probably one of the most beautiful weekends Cody would have ever had in his life.
Yeah.
So if that is any comfort, that would be that would be it. But my heart goes out to the Dorman family, to everyone that's been involved with him, to everyone that's been a part of his journey, his life. And I think there's probably also, aside from the grief, a sense of gratitude that this happened, because this was incredible and rare and beautiful, and shows us once again what horses can do for us, how they can heal us, how they can lift us up. I think that this story embodies that for us. So, yeah.
Eloquently said. It also helps that Bill Motthorst gets up and nails a Bob Baffert horse just on the line. Not that we'd be in any way controversial on the Final Furlong podcast. We'd never.
Oh, not at all. You never say anything controversial.
Yeah. California were a complete blank at their own meeting, weren't they?
Actually, yeah. I have to go back through all of them to make sure that I'm not saying anything wrong here.
I think they were. I think the California horses. I think
Bill Mott, Gosden. None of them. Larry Valley's also not California. No. Yeah. They
only had top 3 finishers. That was it. And
yeah, you're right.
That was Muth.
Because it was all East Coast or sort of more Kentucky, Maryland, that kind of jurisdiction. Yeah. And of course, the Euros that came over with their incredible runners. So
here's the thing, Naomi. We got all very, very excited about the Irish rugby team for the World Cup. Super excited that this was going to be the year. It's never the year with the Irish rugby team. And somehow our coach got Coach of the Year, which just seems laughable, quite frankly. But anyway, the boys did us proud. It's not good enough. Our football team, rubbish. Absolute rubbish. So our national sport has to be horse racing. Because between Aidan O'Brien, Willie Mullins, and everybody, Gordon Elliott, the whole team, we crush the world. We breed the best horses. We've got the best trainers. We've got the best jockeys. We've got the best horses. And we crush everywhere we go. We dominate Cheltenham. We dominate the jumps game. And we dominate the Breeders' Cup. Ireland,
I love that you
horse
say
racing,
we dominate.
our national
Okay,
sport.
hold on. You dominate the jumps game because there's not much jump racing outside of the UK and Ireland. That's really to write home about. I mean, they have some here in the US, but it's not very big. So don't want to burst your bubble.
And we dominate that too. And we dominate that too.
I don't want to burst. I'm not bursting your jump racing bubble, but being realistic is that it lives more in Ireland.
It's 3 countries. It's 3 countries basically.
Yeah, France as well, right? If you want to count. Yeah, that's it. So no offense to you there, but like, okay. The Breeders' Cup, however, yeah, that was awesome. The fact that the Euros come over, and then I like that, because to me it feels like the World Championship. But now go do it in Dubai as well. I think that'd be.
What's our excuse for that? It's too early. Oh no, we've got plenty of trainers who can win in Dubai. We've got plenty of trainers who can win there. It's just that Aidan doesn't really.
Keep it up.
Doesn't really. I wonder, would Auguste Rodin go for the Dubai World Cup? Try him on dirt out there. Nah, it's probably too early.
But if that's not their dream, they're not going to keep him just for.
Yeah.
I think the classic is more what they're.
Oh, it's the classic. It's all about the classic. I've really enjoyed this. If you liked it, comment below on YouTube. If you're listening to this in the traditional way on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, thank you very much. Make sure you've hit the 5-star rating on whatever podcast app it is that you're using. It's a huge help with the algorithm. Likes and shares, of course, on social media. But if you have not listened to us on YouTube yet, well, you can now see the glowing Naomi Tukker and my face for radio on our YouTube page. As I said, the boys from Let's Talk Racing, they did it years ago, Naomi. They got in on the YouTube game years ago, and they've got thousands of followers and loads of people commenting. We've got like 2 people. So we need a bit of help there. If you just hit the old subscribe button. And if you do, you're entered in a draw to win tickets to go to the Navan Racing Festival. And we've got some more great content coming your way. Naomi will be glued to listening to Dennis O'Regan talk about becoming the first jockey to ride a winner at every single racecourse in Britain and Ireland.
That's
he completed it. It's an incredible feat. He completed it with a win at Hereford the other day. That was the one track that was missing. There's a couple of times he's had near misses there. He gets the winner. And it was John Hunt who was commentating. John Hunt was also commentating the day Tony McCoy rode his 3,000 winner. So John's got a habit of being the historic commentator on these meetings. So we'll talk to Dennis about that on Monday, and of course reflect on all the big jumps action as well. From Naomi Tukker, when's Let's Talk Racing back?
Probably start thinking about that after I had the baby.
Priorities for Naomi Tukker. We're back very, very soon with more content on the Final Furlong podcast. Like, share, and subscribe. I think that's what all the cool YouTubers say. From all of us, look after yourself and each other. God bless.